Good morning. I'm Donna, and welcome to my channel, Much Ado About Something. Today I thought I'd just share with you how to make Appalachian cat head biscuits. These were the biscuits that I was taught to make when I was probably 6 years old. Now, an Appalachian biscuit's a little bit different from a Southern biscuit. Southern biscuits are lighter and fluffier. Appalachian biscuits are kind of more dense and crustier. They have, they're more like a crust. Now, in Appalachia, every woman, every household would have had her flour bowl. And they didn't empty the flour out of the flour bowl. The flour stayed in the bowl all the time, and you just added what was needed. The size of your bowl was determined on the size of your family. There was 10 children in Mama's family, so their flour bowl was pretty big. I've got 4 cups of flour in here because I'm doubling the recipe today. Into your 4 cups of flour, you add 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Now, I put my baking powder in this little strainer because sometimes it can have some little chunks in it, and there's nothing worse than getting a chunk of baking powder in your biscuit after it's done. It's not a good taste. And then put 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And just mix that into your flour. See all those little chunks? I just mix them, press them right through this little strainer so that you don't have a lot of clumps of baking powder. We'll need 2 teaspoons of salt. And just kind of mix that in with a fork. Your baking powder and your soda and your salt. Now, if you were in the Appalachians in the mountains, your family would probably mix up your flour and everything with a fork. You might have a pastry cutter, but that would probably be an unusual thing. Things were kept pretty simple in the mountains, and people just used what they had. All right, now we're going to put about maybe that's about a half a cup of lard, maybe about the size of 2 eggs. This is what's called a butter knife, but in our family, for some reason, we call them case knives. So this was a case knife growing up. Put your lard in there, and Appalachian biscuits were made with lard because pigs were readily available, and that was the fat of choice for making biscuits. Just kind of cut your lard into your flour with your knife. And you can work it in there with your hands too. Just kind of break it up to where you want your flour mixed in with it to where it's about the size of peas. Now, biscuits they were the go-to biscuits and cornbread for your big families. Say you had a family of 10 and you were in there, if you hadn't got your bread made up with the yeast in it, you were in trouble. But with biscuits, biscuits were a quick way to make a single serving, individual little servings of bread. They didn't have added yeast, so it didn't take any time to rise. You could just make your biscuits as you needed them, and they were perfect portion. One of the reasons that the reason they call them cat head biscuits, that's just a size relation. When they were teaching you how to make your biscuits and how big you made them, you were taught about the size of a cat head. Now these biscuits were no dainty meals. They were not small little biscuits. They were not small little rolls. These biscuits were made to be hearty parts of the meal. You had a lot of meals like biscuits and gravy, and you had whatever kind of meat you had left, they put on their biscuits. So when you get your lard mixed in there about the size of peas, you'll want to add your liquid. Now the thing about Appalachian mountains is everybody didn't have cows like they did down in the flatlands or the farms. Milk was readily available, but you had to go get it. And a lot of people lived way up in the mountains, so they made do without milk. There was a lot of water, and these biscuits are made with water, with a splash of vinegar, because that's what you had readily available. You just go in the middle of your pan, mix that that lard and that flour. You don't need biscuits like you do bread. You just mix it. Now, if you were fancy, you might roll your biscuits out on a cutting board or dough board, and you might use a little cup or any kind of little cutter and cut your biscuits out to the exact same size. But most of the time in the Appalachians, when the people were in there making their meals, it was just getting it out and getting it out in a timely manner to feed a hungry, hard-working crowd. So most of my family, when they didn't use biscuit cutters, we were just taught to make it in the flour bowl, just like I'm doing. And you get out enough about the size of a cat's head, and then you just roll it in your hands, kind of to the shape of a biscuit. Just flattening and going around as you go with your fingers. And then there you would have one biscuit. I've got a cast iron pan here heated up. My oven's heated up to 450 degrees. It's good to cook your biscuits at a good hot temperature. They cook pretty hot and fast. You know, sometimes these women made biscuits 3 times a day. Sometimes they made them all at one time. And you just had a cold biscuit with your meal, but it didn't matter because you had a lot of gravy and stuff to go on your biscuit. To warm it up and to moisten it. These lard biscuits do get a little bit harder than, say, if you use some other kinds of oils when they're cold. got an 8-inch pan here. You don't have to do a lot of work, not a lot of working on these biscuits. As far as bread making goes, this goes pretty smooth and pretty quickly. Now see, you would have to sift these lumps out of this flour if you were going to keep an ongoing flour bowl. But if you were using it 3 times a day, I guess that would be a pretty, not as hard of a thing to do. Now here they are, flattened out and mixed up and ready to go. I don't put anything on mine. Just stick them in the oven like this, 450-degree oven for 10 to 15 minutes. And then when they come out, I put butter on them. And that gives them a good brown color. And when you get them out, this is what you have. And that's Appalachian cat head biscuits. I thank you today for joining me and letting me share that with you. I hope you have a good day, and as always, until next time.